Mr. Speaker.
Let us pray. Our Father, we confidently ask for your strength and encouragement in our service of you through our service of others. We humbly ask for your gift of wisdom to guide us in making good laws and good decisions for the present and the future of Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file the answer to question number 136.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file a response to written question number 160.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file with the Legislative Assembly copies of the Alberta Water and Wastewater Facility Survey 1985.
Introduction of special guests.
Mr. Speaker, it's with the great amount of pleasure that I introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly a distinguished young Albertan. I would like to firstly introduce Margaret Enders, who was recently awarded the Prince of Wales Scholarship to study at the United World College of the Atlantic. This is one of the 2 scholarships established by the province to commemorate the visit of His Royal Highness Prince Charles to our province in 1983. Margaret is accompanied by her mother, Barbara Enders, by her grandmother, Esme Byers, and by a lifelong friend, Mrs. Mary Norman. I would ask that we extend the usual warm welcome. If they please rise in the members' gallery.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct the first question to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Energy said yesterday that Alberta producers have lost some $250 million this year due to unfair pricing practices by refineries, yet that meetings with the oil companies on the issue were only held last week. Mr. Speaker, given that my colleague from Forest Lawn drew the problem to the government's attention in question period on June the 25th, why did the Premier not direct his government to take some immediate action instead of letting the Energy Minister wait nearly 2 months to get on with it?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Energy did not say unfair pricing tactics. In the course of deregulation of pricing, there has been a considerable period of adjustment. That was acknowledged from the very beginning. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, there was the subsequent sudden drop in energy prices coming along with deregulation. It's obvious that it caused some additional period of adjustment. Meetings have been going on with the industry through the Alberta Petroleum Marketing Commission for some time. As well, we were exploring the various transportation and quality plus the conversion of U.S. pricing to Canadian dollars that is necessary. And in fact, some time ago, the Marketing Commission had meetings with members of industry, and we think we will be able to bring this matter to a successful conclusion.
Mr. Speaker, there was a period of adjustment, certainly not for the majors or the refiners, but my question is, in this discussion, will the government then see that our producers who are desperately in need of this money are repaid the $250 million that we believe is rightfully theirs?
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, this was not a matter of unfair pricing, but rather a judgment made by a variety of companies as to how to convert from world prices established in Saudi Arabia, London, England, and in Texas, Cushing, Texas. Those are complicated matters, and I think the industry, members that I talked to, both small and large, are very pleased. We are moving to bring it to a successful conclusion.
Well, I think, Mr. Speaker, they'd be more pleased if they had the $250 million. But my question to the Premier is simply this. Obviously, we're not going to, by the answer, get the $250 million back, but could the Premier be a little more explicit in what will the provincial government do in the future to make sure our producers are fairly paid by the refiners?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we believe that we'll be able to work out a scheme by consultation with the people involved. I might also say, Mr. Speaker, there were periods of time when our producers were paid more than the world price, and that there was an adjustment both ways.
Supplementary question, just to make sure that we understand the Premier totally on this matter so he's not misquoted then. The Premier is saying then at this time he is satisfied that the $250 million that the refiners took from the producers was fair and equitable, and that the government is not going to do anything about that $250 million.
That's not what I said, Mr. Speaker. However, we have answered for the honourable member to acquaint himself with what I just told him.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. Is the Premier going to do anything about, in addition to the $250 million ripoff, our absent Minister of Energy has talked about, the ripoff of the increase of nearly 40 to 50% in refining a gallon of crude? And also, that's the question, what's he going to do about the ripoff in refining crude? There's two more ripoffs, and thirdly, the other ripoff, where it's now 10 cents a gallon more being charged to process unleaded gasoline. $250 million is just ahead of the iceberg, Mr. Premier.
The Chair would point out, with due respect to the member for Westlock Sturgeon, that the nature of the last two paragraphs could hardly be described as a succinct supplementary. The Chair, however, is rising to point out a comment made to the House about 2 days ago, a citation from both saying 316. It has been sanctioned by usage that a member, while speaking, must not refer to the presence or absence of specific members, and the Chair would respectfully bring that to the attention of the member for Westlock Sturgeon. The Chair awaits the reply from the Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, energy prices at the pump, gasoline at the pump, as was mentioned yesterday by the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, are controlled by competition, and that's the preference for this government. We do not believe in excessive regulation at the consumer level, and I think that as we go through this period of adjustment, of new deregulation and so on, and of suddenly changing prices on the world scene, that those processes will act in the right way. There's always a desire that everything is perfect all of the time. Neither governments nor market forces are able to work that way to have everything perfect all of the time. And as I said yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we have that great, wonderful darling of the NDP and the Liberals, Petro-Canada, and they wouldn't do anything terrible like that.
Member for Little Bow.
Who's feeding all the money in Petro-Canada now?
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question to the Premier, and it's with regards to the price paid by the refiners. Is that price a competitive price? And could the Premier indicate what reason, if that is so, for intervention on the prices paid by the refiners?
There appears to be no reason to intervene at that price level.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct the second question to the Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, striking Gainers employees continue to be arrested daily for trying to persuade citizens not to buy Gainers products. My question is to the Minister, has the Minister any plan to try and get both sides together to negotiate an end to this socially disruptive strike?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, dealing with the preamble of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, if the employees, I hope and presume they are employees of Gainers who have been doing these things, if they were to read the appropriate section of the Labour Act, then they would not be subject to arrest, and if they obeyed the legal injunction, likewise. In regard to the government's activities with regard to this dispute, I have said on many occasions, both within the House and outside, our main purpose was to achieve a resolution by collective bargaining and a settlement of the strike so that the employees of Gainers could go back to work. We gave both sides the optimum chance by appointing a disputes inquiry board. Mr. Dubinsky came up with recommendations after a thorough investigation which he felt were equitable, and both sides rejected those recommendations by large majorities. The democratic process has been performed and the people have spoken themselves.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't asking about ancient history. I was asking about what's happening now. My question to the Minister, to be a little more specific, has the Minister appointed a departmental mediator, and if not, why not?
Mr. Speaker, for many weeks now there has been a departmental mediator appointed since the strike vote was called. That individual is still available at the request of the parties if they wish them to be involved.
Well, supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. As it's well known, we believe that laws are the cause of this dispute, so I think the Minister has some responsibility here. Would the Minister be prepared to intervene personally to try and end this dispute?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to take part in the debate that was just invited by the Leader of the Opposition with his remarks about the labour laws, but I would take opportunity once more to state that we have now appointed the committee which will look at and review all the labour legislation. That will be done thoroughly and with due speed. Whether that will affect the situation and whether the recommendations will involve the situation, such as that occurring again, as I cannot yet predict, that would be beyond my ability at this time.
Well, supplementary question, given that this committee, if it ever reports, may be in the Middle East or somewhere else, and that will take a long time, I asked him if he would intervene personally. I take it by the non-answer he won't. Is the Minister saying that he's just washed his hands of this situation, no matter what the social cost of the matter?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman doesn't know me. I don't wash my hands of that kind of situation very willingly.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, as the Minister asked the committee for an interim amendment that would protect the jobs of those presently on strike.
Mr. Speaker, the jobs of those presently on strike are protected under current legislation. When a settlement is achieved, they will get their jobs back.
Supplementary, Red Deer North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the main question, which had to do with a boycott, to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, has his department been able to assess the negative effects on the people and economy of Alberta by a boycott of any of their products?
Mr. Speaker, the Department of Economic Development and Trade has not undertaken a study of the consequences of boycotts or secondary picketing. We do, however, recognize the importance of the food processing industry to the people of Alberta in terms of its importance not only to primary agriculture but to the value adding and the creating of jobs. We continue to work within the department to continue to promote manufacturing of food products and other value adding in order that Albertans have the opportunity to process and upgrade the products within the province.
Member for Clover Bar.
Speaker, my supplementary question is the Minister of Agriculture. Is the Minister in a position to indicate if the Department has done any study as to what long-term effects this dispute will have on the hog industry in this province?
Mr. Speaker, to my knowledge, there has been no study done, but I could share with the honourable member that we are constantly assessing this situation. To underscore what the honourable member of our cabinet has just indicated, we're very conscious of our food processing sector, and that's why we have a number of worthwhile programs to further the food processing sector.
Main question, Leader of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, this question is to the Minister of Agriculture. It is my understanding that both Ministers of Agriculture support a domestic wheat price of $10 a bushel. Now, this price does little for Alberta farmers, as only 10% of our wheat is sold domestically. But in view of the havoc and the competitive disadvantage and unemployment that $10 domestic wheat would create in our milling and baking industries, would the Minister agree to meet representatives of the milling and banking industries to explain to them how a $10 domestic wheat price will result, in their opinion, only 5 cents a loaf, whereas the bakers think it'll be 15 cents an increase in loaf? Would they meet the...
Mr. Speaker, I'm more than happy to meet at any time with anybody. I'm even happy to meet with the honourable member from Westlock Sturgeon. And I can assure him that our door is always open to meet with representatives, whether they be from the agricultural sector or any other sector, as the door of this government is open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can understand his pleasure at being able to hobnob with the opposition. However, will the Minister assure the Alberta farmers that this government will become much more progressive and less conservative, if you'll pardon expression, in marketing assistance for Alberta agricultural products and services?
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised again at the honourable member if he would read some of the presentations in the estimates and do a little more research rather than pass all his glib comments to simply cover up his lack of substance. He would be aware that there are worthwhile programs such as SIMS and RAP as it relates to the food process sector, which this government is very involved with. And we're also very encouraged, Mr. Speaker, by the high profile that agriculture received at the First Ministers' Conference, and that was due to the fact of the superb leadership offered by the Premier of that conference and the sensitivity that he showed in ensuring that agriculture did receive the high priority that it did.
The chair hesitates to make comment with respect to the Minister of Agriculture, but there's a difficulty within the Assembly of using various bits of alphabet soup to describe programs. And especially it comes to a head at this time when the chair thought that I heard sins being wrapped. Perhaps the honourable member for Westlock Sturgeon would care to move to the supplementary, please.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, who must be worrying about his job to have to praise the Premier that highly, but as a positive suggestion as to the, could the Minister increase the marketing initiatives for Alberta agriculture products and services by the government revitalizing or replacing the Marketing Council?
Mr. Speaker, as I have indicated in the past, since assuming this responsibility of Agriculture Minister, we are going to reassess and revitalize all the boards and commissions that do come under our jurisdiction, and we hope to do so within the next number of months. I'm sure the honourable member can understand that we have not had an opportunity to date to pursue that as vigorously as we would have wished to, but we are going to pursue that to make sure that it is very responsive to not only our consumers, but more importantly to our agricultural sector. And since you were kind enough, Mr. Speaker, to point out to me, may I share with you that SIMS, S-I-M-S, is Strategy for Improved Market Share, and RAP is the Rural Agricultural Product Promotion, which are very valuable programs in offering additional incentives to our food processing sector.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, I'm sorry in the delay in starting the Marketing Council. I thought there's still some Tories around to be rewarded. But, however, can the Minister explain to Alberta farmers why all support services at a cost of $16 million for the Department of Education or Department of Agriculture receive more funding than research and resource development, which was only $10 million?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very suspect whether the honourable member relays figures to me, because just yesterday he indicated that Western Canada only received some $16 million as it related to our grain industry, where in reality that is feed freight assistance to the Maritimes and it has nothing to do with Western Canada. So I'm very suspect when the honourable member relays any type of figures to me, because 9 times out of 10 his figures are incorrect.
Member for Clover Bar.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Agriculture or the Premier, last fall, Mr. Speaker, the former Minister of International Trade, the Honourable Horst Schmidt, was supposed to lead a delegation to China to look at further exports of agricultural and other products, but we had the coronation of the Premier at that time. I want to know, and that was delayed, I want to know if the Minister of Agriculture or the Premier or the Minister of Economic Development are looking at a trade mission to China to see if we can market more of our agricultural products, especially.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report to the honourable member for Clover Bar that just last Thursday I had the opportunity to meet with the Minister of Agriculture from China, along with my colleague who is responsible for economic development. We did discuss a number of agricultural concerns that are dear to the hearts of both countries, and at this time may I pay my thanks also to the honourable member from Wainwright for hosting the Chinese minister for those 2 days.
Member for Athabasca-Lac-La-Biche, supplementary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Agriculture, has the Minister considered recommending to the Federal Minister of Agriculture that a per farmer quota be established for domestic wheat, so that small wheat producers in Alberta can more fairly benefit from the $10 a bushel price for domestic wheat?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to hear the endorsement by the honourable member of that proposal, even though the Liberal Party is against supporting our agricultural sector, and to indicate to him that the federal government has not implemented the $10 proposal for domestic wheat as yet, as they are still assessing that, and I would imagine part of their assessment is due to the fact that they are giving consideration to some type of a deficiency payment this fall. At least that would be my hope. But I can share with the honourable member, too, in response to his question, that it is our hope in the event that they do implement an increased price for our domestic wheat, that they do so by way of a market-neutral system, whereby that fund will be evenly spread across the board to all grain producers.
Leader of the Representative Party, followed by the member for Calgary-McCall.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for utilities, and it's with my regard to a concern about the establishment of rates for the various utility companies relative to power. They have a guaranteed income with a guaranteed profit in this province. And I was wondering if the Minister could indicate whether there is going to be a review of that process of establishing power rates, particularly in rural Alberta, in the coming year.
Mr. Speaker, there's no present position that I have relative to reviewing the position that's in place at the moment, where the utility companies can apply to the PUB for rate increases whenever they may deem it necessary. I understand, for example, that Alberta Power is and has been before the PUB in the last few days, as a matter of fact, for the first time in a couple of years.
Mr. Speaker, a supplementary question to the Minister, and it's relative to the last comment. as of today, Alberta Power is making application to increase their rates by 30% to rural electrification, the rural REA associations in that respective area. Could the minister indicate whether that is in tune with the possibilities of, or the capability of rural Alberta paying that amount, or is it a place where government should be establishing some kind of guidelines and possible verbal direction to that company?
Well, Mr. Speaker, relative to the figure of 30%, I have not heard that other than from the honourable member, and well, sometimes you can be as accurate as 7% in some of those stories. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure just exactly what the end result will be of the presentation made by Alberta Power to the PUB, but certainly we'll wait with interest in that particular one. My understanding, one of the main elements of their presentation was to include their costs for the commissioning of their portion of the Sheerness plant.
Mr. Speaker, a supplementary question to the minister is with regards to the takeover of various REAs by utility companies. Could the minister indicate whether any review is made with regards to those takeovers? For example, the Rio Grande REA in northern Alberta, which the minister is familiar with, has an independent value on their REA of $5.5 million. Alberta Power offers $100,000. Is the minister's department reviewing those kinds of takeovers, and is there any kind of intervention that occurs by government in matters such as that?
I wouldn't use the term intervention, but I might say that there have been staff from the Department of Transportation and Utilities who have sat in as recently as this week on one of the meetings that related to a takeover that I might say did not occur. The vote was not sufficient to allow the sale to the power company. But we're reviewing the methods and the availability of information to ensure that both parties, before they make a decision, have the best information possible to make that decision on by the board, in essence the REA board who would be making the decision on behalf of its members.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, to the Utilities Minister, will his department take steps to investigate whether or not the power generation facilities cannot be run more economically on natural gas today as it was a number of years ago when gas was cheap as it is today, and check whether the utility companies are not paying themselves a phony price for their own coal?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe that there is an ongoing monitoring system in place as to the costs that are presented in essence to any of these particular hearings, and of course that is left to the judgment at this time of the PUB and the ERCB relative to applications made on their behalf.
Member for Athabasca-Lac-La Biche, supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, has the minister considered appointing a permanent publicly funded consumer advocate on the Public Utilities Board so that consumers, groups such as the Rural Electrification Association, can be more fairly represented at such hearing without great costs incurred to them?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe there is a motion on the order paper, and you're certainly welcome to speak to it.
Member for Calgary, member for Cypress Redcliffe, final supplementary on this issue.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if the minister could assure the Assembly that in the event of a REA selling out to a utility company, that he assure the Assembly that the majority of the REA members have to vote for that takeover?
Mr. Speaker, that was changed a couple of years ago to bring the majority vote to 2/3 of the members present must be in favor of that sale before it can take place, and that was moved up from the 51% range that was prior to that.
Member for Calgary McCall, followed by the member for Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to address a question to the Minister of Hospitals and Medical Care. As the Minister may be aware, there has been some concern and some questions relevant to the supply of beds in the new Peter Lougheed Hospital in northeast Calgary, and certainly some remarks made by the present chairman of the Calgary Hospital District Board number 93. Could the minister indicate if he has ordered the board of District 93 in Calgary to not proceed with neonatal care beds at the new Peter Lougheed Hospital?
Mr. Speaker, No, I have not ordered the board to do any such thing. What has occurred is that the Calgary District Hospital Group, who has responsibilities for the operation of the Holy Cross Hospital, the Rocky View, and the Peter Lougheed, was proceeding on the basis of providing full maternity services and neonatal beds at each of those 3 hospitals. Some expression of concern came from several quarters in the Calgary medical community, in particular, that providing those sorts of services in 6 hospitals as opposed to the present 4 might in fact have some very detrimental effect on the programs overall for the city. So I have asked the board of the hospital if they would defer for the moment the purchase of equipment and the staffing of the new units at the Peter Lougheed Hospital and the Rocky View Hospital until such time as the Calgary Hospital Advisory Council, which is a group of people for the most part involved in the various hospital boards in Calgary, has an opportunity to review the situation and make some recommendations as to whether or not there should in fact be any changes. It's my intention to meet next week with the hospital board, its chairman and other members for a discussion on the entire matter. I just might say in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, that it was in no way our intention that the new Peter Lougheed Hospital should not have those units, only that there ought to be a review. And pending that review, there should not be the purchase of additional equipment or staffing in either the Rocky View or the Peter Lougheed, because it could well be that the review might conclude that the existing Holy Cross staffing might move to the Peter Lougheed or something of that nature.
A supplementary, Mr. Speaker, considering there's a time consideration here, has the minister given any time frame for the report to come to him relevant to these supply of beds for neonatal care and obstetrics within the hospital district itself?
Mr. Speaker, no, I haven't given any time frame, but I believe that it should occur as quickly as possible so that there isn't any long-term uncertainty about what kinds of facilities or services might be provided in any of the hospitals mentioned.
Mr. Speaker, is the minister giving considerations to any other downsizing that has previously been announced to the Peter Lougheed Hospital, or any additional studies as to the types of bed use that may be presently on stream, considering the present discussion that we've just had relevant to neonatal care?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not giving consideration to any downsizing at all. As a matter of fact, all that I've asked to be done is to review whether or not those services need to be now provided and those beds need to be now opened in the Rocky View and the Peter Lougheed Hospital. I don't call that a downsizing. The hospitals are presently under construction. There's no change proposed with respect to the square footage or anything else that exists. I can say as well that this matter has nothing to do with general downsizing or change of plans of hospital construction in Calgary or anywhere else. We're only looking at it on the basis of when you have some pretty learned medical people saying you're doing the wrong thing, then from my point of view, I better have a look at it, because I think medical costs in this province are great enough now without us sort of not acknowledging when the medical community asks us to, that we may have a situation where we can save funds and operating costs over the longer term.
Member for Edmonton Calder, followed by the member for Edmonton for Calgary-Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to direct my questions to the Minister of Community and Occupational Health. I understand that the Minister of Community and Occupational Health will be in Camrose tomorrow, and I'm wondering if it's the Minister's intention to authorize the closing of the East Rose Ward of the Rosehaven Institute by October of this year.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very much looking forward to visiting Camrose with my colleague, the Honourable Solicitor General and the MLA for Camrose, tomorrow afternoon. And we will be meeting with a variety of people at the Rosehaven Care Centre. And the Honourable Member for Camrose has brought to my attention the need for the importance of this facility in Camrose. And I look forward to meeting with the people there and hearing and seeing the delivery of the services right there in the centre.
Okay, well, the minister previously responsible has outlined patient discharge options from that institute. Is the minister completely, is the minister completely reversing the plan then of the previous minister to close the ward?
Well, the honourable member opposite mentioned one very important word, and the word was options. And we are exploring those options, and in the interest of delivering the best possible care to those people who need that care from that kind of a facility, we'll be considering that in the days ahead.
Supplementary to the minister, could the minister please tell me then if, in fact, the minister will be closing the ward or not?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we'll be visiting the facility tomorrow, and I look forward to discussing the matter with the people in Camrose, with my honourable colleague and with all of my colleagues, and making a decision in the days ahead.
The little guy. Forget the little guy.
Could, supplementary, Mr. Speaker, could the minister confirm at this time that there are no available approved homes to the residents of Rosehaven in Camrose?
No, Mr. Speaker, I can't make that commitment, and if the honourable member would care to read the Committee of Supply debate from July 31 in the evening, she will be able to see that I was very happy to announce a approximately $175,000 grant out of this year's estimates for the provision of day facilities, day programs in Camrose, in the East Rose wing of the Rosehaven Care Centre, for the provision of those very, very important day programs that provide for medical, social, recreational needs of all mental health, mentally ill people in Camrose and area. So I'm very, very pleased with that initiative that was brought forward by my predecessors in this portfolio, and look forward to visiting that facility tomorrow.
Member for Calgary-Buffalo, followed by the member for Grand Prairie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Honourable Minister of Education, the Aryan Nations Church has recently announced that it will establish a compound in central Alberta, and this raises some very important questions relating to the kind of protection children receive in this province with respect to their schooling. What controls do we have, Madam Minister, over curriculum and teachers in private schools in order to ensure that the educational interests of the child are looked after in the event groups such as the Aryan Nations and other groups wish to establish private schools?
Mr. Speaker, the question goes into some detail and may be one that should be placed on the order paper. But with respect to the controls on private school education, I guess the control that passes through all four categories of private schools in this province is the one of curriculum, which is the one that I control. And if a school is teaching a curriculum, and to cite the example that the honourable member has used, which perhaps teaches intolerance of others, it would not be an approved curriculum in our school system, private or public.
Could the minister confirm that Category 4 private schools can hire teachers who have no teaching qualifications or who have been decertified, so that, for example, Terry Long or Jim Keekstra could teach in such Category 4 schools?
No, Mr. Speaker. Although no public funding passes to the Category 4 private schools, the teachers must be certified, and that certification process is done by me.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker. I believe that's not correct, and I'd like to challenge the minister on that point. Well, it is. Let the House be aware that that is not correct with respect to Category 4 schools.
Order, honourable member. please. Thank you. Points of order come at the end of question period. It's a dispute over facts at any rate. Would you, the member from Calgary-Buffalo, please continue with the supplementary?
Does the government have any plans to abolish Category 4 schools as recommended by the Gitter report in order to ensure that teachers in all schools in the province are qualified and approved?
Mr. Speaker, the question of all private schools, whether they be teaching special education needs or any of the other three categories, is part of the very important review on the School Act, which I am in the process of reviewing, as the honourable member knows, and will be presenting the amended act, or a new act rather, as I indicated, in the spring of 1987, as best as I can judge at this point.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the minister could confirm that under the present rules relating to Category 1 private schools that the Aryan Nations group could receive public funding from the province for such a school.
Mr. Speaker, the question is hypothetical because no application for private school status has been given or been sought by the group that the honourable member names. I think it is important, however, to assure Albertans that there are checks and balances within the system. I spoke earlier about my approval of curriculum, which is needed for all categories. I will double-check my facts with respect to the point of order that the honourable member raised.
Member for supplementary question, member for Edmonton-Avonmore.
To the Minister of Education, how is the curriculum that is taught in the school monitored to be sure that an approved curriculum is in fact being taught in the school?
Mr. Speaker, my responsibility, as I've said in this legislature before, is the efficient and effective education of students in this province under the age of 16. I take that responsibility very seriously, whether those students are in public systems, private systems, or homeschooling. And I will say that with respect to checking the curriculum that those students are learning, whatever the circumstances, that is a responsibility I take seriously, and there is inspections of all those schools on a constant basis.
Member for Highwood, followed by the member for Edmonton-Belmont.
Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Agriculture. The province provided a magnificent amount of funds for farmers to improve their water storage facilities, and the completion of all this work was to have been done by October the 31st of this year. My question to the minister would be, will the minister strive to elongate the actual construction period to, say, the end of the year, please?
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report, because of the strong representations made by the honourable member from Highwood, we are going to do just that, and we're going to extend the program by working to carry it out until the end of this year.
Supplemental question, Mr. Speaker. Does the minister agree with me that water is and always will be an important factor in agricultural Alberta? And will the minister consider budgeting for another water storage program in 1987?
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to concur totally with what the member from Highwood has indicated. And just by way of underscoring our concern, as he is aware, last year we expended some $2.5 million on that program. Our budgetary allocation for 86-87 is $2.8 million, and as we go into the budgetary process, we will give it full consideration.
Mr. Speaker, the members opposite may not realize, but you never miss the water till the well goes dry, and I have one more supplemental to the Minister of Environment. Is the minister prepared to implement a similar policy with respect to the emergency well water supply program?
I indicated that the program would terminate on the 31st of July 1986. The program has terminated. We'll not be accepting any further applications after that date. However, if an individual had an application approved prior to the end of July of this year, and he had not been able to obtain the services of a well driller, will accept the application and pay for it, even though the well will have been drilled after July 31, 1986.
Speaker. Member for Edmonton Belmont, followed by the member for Wainwright. Supplementary, Athabasca Lac-La-Biche.
To the Minister of Environment, will the Minister change the or reimburse farmers who got into difficulty last year with the well drilling program because of the lack of proper information given on to the letter that were given to farmers about who they should contact for the permission to do test drilling?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman asked me that several days ago, so I know the answer to the question. It's not been fixed or anything. There are approximately 250 well drillers in the province of Alberta, and we've undertaken an investigation in terms of where there would be problem areas. And it turns out about only a handful of well drillers may have not, in fact, provided correct information in all cases to the individual farmer who would be making application. Mostly it comes down to a misunderstanding. The handful of well drillers where there have been misunderstandings have been contacted. It has been brought to their attention what the program's all about. Should the honourable member or any other honourable member have a situation where it can be clearly shown that there was something fraudulently done, I'd be happy to undertake a review of those specific ones on a case-by-case basis.
Member for Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Labour regarding amusement rides at the West Edmonton Mall. The Mindbender inquiry was told Tuesday of yet another warning memo to 555 about maintenance procedures. Is it or is it not the policy of the department that letters or memos from officials which have such serious warnings like this should be brought to the minister's attention?
Mr. Speaker, there are all kinds of memos within the department. Some are sent to the minister's desk and some are not. I am not aware of having seen this particular letter that was sent to West Edmonton Mall management, but I can check into where it went and I'll get back to the honourable member. I might add, Mr. Speaker, that in relation to the inquiry that's going on at West Edmonton Mall, it's not my intention in any way to try and second-guess the eventual recommendations of the commissioners of that inquiry, and I won't be commenting upon any of the articles in the newspaper until they complete their inquiry and make the report to me.
Clearly, memos that warn of such catastrophe should be across the minister's desk. However, has the minister had the opportunity to review which of the department's senior staff or other ministers saw the letter that warned of the potential catastrophe? And for clarification, that's the letter that the minister said never crossed his desk.
No, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Tuesday, the minister said that the submarine ride was not inspected after the Mindbender accident because it was not in the water park, or it was in the water park rather than in Fantasyland. Why did the minister decide to make this potentially dangerous sort of distinction of the mall's operation of amusement rides?
Mr. Speaker, I think I've explained that in the House before. I went out and had a look at the roller coaster on the Sunday immediately following the accident. At that time, along with senior staff in the department, I went round Fantasyland. That took several hours. And at the end of that time, it was decided that the whole of Fantasyland would stay closed that day, the following day. During that period of time, the rides would be subjected to further inspections, and only those rides which had been cleared by those further inspections would open. Over a period of some days, the whole of Fantasyland, with the exception of the roller coaster and one other ride, was, I understand, reopened. The rest of the West Edmonton Mall area is of considerably more recent construction than the original part of Fantasyland, and the rest of it has, I understand, been progressively subjected to inspections. With regard to the submarine incident, I have some preliminary indications from the department, and again, that ride will not reopen until suitable safeguards are installed.
Time for question period has expired. The Minister of Education wishes to supplement the previous answer.
Mr. Speaker, I just wish to clarify that I was in error with respect to the certification and hiring of same for Category 4 schools, and the member for Calgary-Buffalo was right. However, I would confirm that, in fact, I do approve any curriculum which is being taught within the Category 4, and that curriculum receives very, very careful scrutiny from my department and for me before that category is granted.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps then I would just confirm the tenor of the minister's answer, that means that in a Category 4 private school, that a teacher need not be approved or qualified in any way and may in fact be decertified, and that person could still teach in a Category 4 private school and now under Alberta rules now.
Let him go, Speaker.
No, don't.
The process is a bit difficult and is actually out of order. Time for question period has expired. The minister graciously made remarks. Any further remarks, which the chair would now construe as being supplementary question, should indeed take place outside of the time of the Assembly as a whole.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. My understanding, after some length of a week or so where I was refusing unanimous consent, was that when the minister makes an announcement, and this is what I deem this to be, there was one question then allowed by the question. Well, what was that then if it wasn't an announcement?
Honourable Member for Westlock Sturgeon, the Honourable Minister of Education was not making an announcement. The Minister of Education was being gracious enough to admit an error in previous questioning as responded to quite properly by the member for Calgary-Buffalo. It's a correction for the purposes of the record. Period. Orders of the day. That's quite different. Mr.